What is the most hilarious historical fact you know? Notorious pirate hunter Benjamin Hornigold once attacked a ship just to steal all of the crew members' hats. His men had gotten drunk and lost their hats during a party the night before and decided to board a ship to get replacements. Brazil and France almost went to war because they had a disagreement about lobsters. The event is known as the Lobster War. France thought lobsters swim there for they were above Brazilian soil and could be fished by any vessel, and Brazil thought lobsters crawled on the ocean's floor, therefore are Brazilian property. Brazil's foreign affairs minister had this to say about it: "The attitude of France is inadmissible and our government will not retreat. The lobster will not be caught." It ended when they agreed that actually lobsters don't crawl nor swim, they leap. Ben Franklin used to leak government secrets while drunk to get laid. It got to the point he had to be watched/monitored outside of session. Celebrated lawmaker in Catania, in present-day Sicily, Diodorus Siculus stated that Charondas issued a law that anyone who brought weapons into the assembly must be put to death. Charondas ran to the assembly one day because he was being ambushed and he wanted help. Unfortunately, he still had a sword still attached to himself, so in order to uphold his own law, he committed suicide. A very seldom mentioned fact about Louis Riel, leader of the Métis Nation and most written about man in Canadian history, is that he was so devoted to his resistance movement that he sold everything he owned to get more ammunition for his soldiers. This included his clothing. When he was finally captured in Batoche, he was stark naked. No one really knows how long he'd been running around like that, since his soldiers had been shoot nails and wood out of their guns for quite a while before his capture, but the man probably had schizophrenia and this might have just been considered normal real behavior. Anyways, he was given a coat by one of the NW Mountain police officers that took him in. A few decades later, someone decided to build a statue of this scene, Riel defeated with nothing but an overcoat on. I've never been able to find a picture of the actual statue, but it stood in Regina, Saskatchewan for years. One day, someone's child got a little too close to it, looked up the coat, and saw it was anatomically correct under the coat. The child ran off to tell their parents what they saw. The parents complained to the city, and the statue was taken down, and I have no bloody idea where it is today despite days of googling and calling around to try and find it, or just a picture of it for a paper I was writing. Where the hell is the naked statue of Louis Riel? Someone please tell me, I need to see it once in my life. Level 1 _fan 330 points. One day ago in the 1976 Montreal Olympics, there was a 14-year-old Romanian gymnast who was the first to get a perfect score, 10.00, however, because the score was never obtained and was considered an impossibility, the screen she used could only show a score up to 9.99. So despite the fact that she did get a perfect score of 10.00, the screen showed a score of 1.00. Napoleon was once attacked by a horde of rabbits. Basically, a rabbit hunt was set up to celebrate the treaties of Tilsit, and they ended up amassing somewhere between hundreds and thousands of rabbits. Accounts vary. Anyway, the day of the hunt they set the rabbits in cages surrounding the area that they would be hunting in. They released them once everyone was set, but instead of being scared the bunnies swarmed the hunting party. At first they thought it was funny, but then it got overwhelming, and Napoleon and the others had to flee from the bunnies in a coach. Corporal Wojtek the soldier bear served in the Polish army in World War II. Yes, a Syrian brown bear. He saw combat, enjoyed smoking, drinking, and coffee in the morning. When Soldiers were cold, he would sleep with them to keep them warm. Originally known as Private Wojtek, he was promoted to corporal after his admirable service in the Battle of Mont Cassino. In the 1920s, radium had recently been discovered, and it was seen similarly to how titanium is seen now. People back then didn't know that radiation was harmful. In fact, many thought it was healthy. Just like today, many radium branded products back then quite fortunately contained no such radium. Some unfortunately did. Some were in practicum harmless, such as watches that had radium coated paint that glowed in the dark. The production of these, however, didn't last too long, as the women who painted these watches would lick the brush to get them to a fine point. You can see where that went. Other companies had products that were all in all quite disturbing. One such company thought it would be a good idea to make a little pouch for men to store a fair amount of radium right up against their reproductive organs. Again, you can see where that went. I don't remember specifics, but a lord in England way back, 1600 wanted his people to start growing potatoes. The locals scoffed at the idea, so the Lord started his own potato patch and started telling people how expensive and valuable they were. He had guards posted around his potato garden. However, he told the guards that if people snuck in at night, they were to look the other way. Through this method, the people started growing potatoes, and when the bad times came, they had a crop that could sustain them. When Europeans first got access to tobacco, they thought it had amazing medicinal qualities. Among many other things, they thought they could revive an unconscious or comatose person by sticking a tube or pipe up the unconscious person's ass and blowing tobacco smoke into it. This obviously didn't work, not even a little bit, but it did give us the expression to blow smoke up one's ass, which means a placating action that doesn't actually help in any way. Andrew Jackson shared a cup of coffee, illegally imported, with Jane Laffitte and his crew one night during the New Orleans campaign. Even after he basically called him and his men lawless savages, he was exhausted from dysentery. Every battle he fought in, he did so from horseback. Reason being, he was suffering from severe diarrhea and refused to dismount his horse for fear of shitting himself. Also, many of Jane Laffitte's men didn't fight in any climactic battle. They'd wait on the outskirts of the enemy camps, wait for one or two guys to walk out into the brush to relieve themselves, and come out of the mud and slit their throats. Andrew Jackson learned this when he almost pissed right on one of their heads when he first arrived. I live 3 blocks away from the ruins of the field hospital, where General Buchanan died. Thought I'd share these with you all. Battle of New Orleans wasn't even fought in New Orleans. Look up my hometown of Chemette. Legend has it that during the Napoleonic Wars of the early 19th century, a shipwrecked monkey was hanged by the people of Hartlepool, believing him to be a French spy. To this day, people from Hartlepool are affectionately known as "monkey hangers." A French ship was spotted floundering and sinking off the Hartlepool coast. Suspicious of enemy ships and nervous of possible invasion, the good folk of Hartlepool rushed down to the beach, where amongst the wreckage of the ship they found the only survivor, the ship's monkey, which was apparently dressed in a miniature military-style uniform. Hartlepool is a long way from France and most of the populace had never met, or even seen, a Frenchman. Some satirical cartoons of the time pictured the French as monkey-like creatures with tails and claws, so perhaps the locals could be forgiven for deciding that the monkey, in its uniform, must be a Frenchman, and a French spy that. There was a trial to ascertain whether the monkey was guilty of spying or not. However, not unsurprisingly, the monkey was unable to answer any of the court's questions, and was found guilty. The townsfolk then dragged him into the town square and hanged him.